That was a bit squeaky. Start again. Hello, welcome back to Ask an Adventurer, where you ask questions and I answer them. Today, I'm wearing my Right to Roam meets Outdoor Swimming Society t-shirt. And the reason I'm wearing that is because today's first question is, what do you do in reference to private property? There are so many good places around me to hike and camp, but it's private property. Do you go ahead and not worry about it, or try to get permission? Thank you. Well, I could and have spoken about this for an entire hour at a time before, but my brief answer would be that only 8% of England is open access land, and that means 92% is theoretically off limits to us. And if you think that's ridiculous, then you're going to have to do something about it, really. My approach is, one, completely try to respect landowners. So completely take care of the land, leave a positive trace, leave it better than you found it, cause nobody any stress, hassle, aggro, discomfort or problems. Love the land, care for it, be friendly and chatty to everyone you meet. And then beyond that, I just go wherever the heck I want, basically. If I want to go sleep in a forest, I'm going to sleep in a forest. It seems ridiculous to me that that should be completely off limits. As long as you're not near someone's house, you're not wrecking their fields, you're not causing an ounce of bother. For camping out, essentially, if you just are away from places, you arrive late, you leave early, you leave no trace, no one's going to find you. And the rare occasions they do have a nice friendly little chat about how we can all care for our land communally and responsibly, and all will be well with the world. Is my brief answer. Slightly longer answer, read, where is it? Read this book, The Trespasser's Companion by Nick Hayes. It's fantastic. Look how many notes I've taken in it. That pile of books I predict is going to collapse before the end of this video. Next question. What do you want to be doing when you're 73? What a fantastic question. When I'm 73, I want to be running in the hills, gently, swimming in rivers, reading lots of books, drinking lots of coffee, planting trees, pontificating to young people about nature and planting trees, being accepting of the way that young people live their lives and not assuming that how it was in my day was much better and grumbling about that. I would like to be living somewhere quite warm, I have to say. And maybe writing a couple of books. Oh, and watching a lot of test match cricket. Yes. Right, I've watched some of your videos. I have to confess, my eye was mostly drawn to the titles of books on the shelves behind you. Which of these books would you recommend for a wannabe adventurer too scared to take that first step? Okay, I hope we get lots of book requests, book suggestion questions here, but that's a specific one. A book for someone who wants to take their first step. Gosh, well, As I Walked Out One Midsummer Morning is a good book for reminding you that you don't need to be some tough guy adventurer to have an adventure, and that you just got to start somewhere. Tricky question. Now this is where I should have been preparing in advance, isn't it? Press pause. Ding! Ding! Press unpause. I would suggest the Wild Things publishing company and Vertebrate publishers have fantastic books to help people get out on their first adventures. Seeing as I'm not allowed to recommend my own book, Micro Adventures, and also a nice book called what's it called? The Crossroads of Should and Must. That might hopefully help you get out the door and do something different. Have you always travelled with the environment in mind? I read Moods of Future Joys and I love that you didn't catch a single plane around the world. This is really interesting because I cycled around the world, very green, very eco. I went around the world without using an aeroplane, very green, very eco. And not once did I think of that being a reason for it. And not once did anyone say to me at the time or in several years after the trip, wow, what an interesting eco trip. So this offers me hope in how much the world and thinking about adventure has changed recently. Because what if I was going to cycle around the world today without using an aeroplane, I'd be really banging on about the green side of it. So I'm delighted I did that, but it was just an accidentally green thing to do. Any tips for environmentally friendly traveling, they go on to ask. Don't fly places, just cycle away from your front door. You will have a brilliant adventure. Or get on a train to somewhere quite far away and then cycle or walk back home again. That would be fantastic. Also paying for carbon offsetting. Wow. There used to be a website called cheatneutral.com, which is a great website whereby you could cheat on your partner, cheat on your boyfriend or girlfriend, and then all you had to do to make it all fine was just make a donation to this website, and then that would offset your harm and your guilt. Which is a sort of summary of some of the problems of carbon offsetting. I do think I'm going to try not to judge here. So whenever I fly anywhere now, which I try to never do, but when I do, I certainly offset my flight as the very bare minimum, but I try also to donate more than that. I want to be not just balancing out some of the bad, I want to be actively trying to do some good. So if you have to fly, definitely offset it, and try, if you can afford it, to donate a bunch more to a bunch of good people who will be doing some good. So not just cheatneutral.com. Oh my goodness, my memory's so bad. Anna Hughes, Flight Free Travel. She runs a website about adventures that you can have without needing an aeroplane, and she knows a lot more about this sort of stuff than me. Are you concerned about piracy with your digital books? No, not at all. I would be delighted for my digital books to be pirated, copied, distributed, and read by 1 million people without me getting a single penny from it. Because I hope then that the word would spread and it would lead on to proper sales. That's kind of what the guy, Paulo Coelho, the guy who wrote The Alchemist. He essentially gave away his early books because no one was reading them until they reached a big enough audience. So no, I'm all for piracy. Interesting also on the piracy thing, my kids' books have been translated in Iran without my permission because they have different copyright laws. And I contacted the Iranian publishers like, hey, what are you doing nicking my books? And they were like, sorry, dude, we got different publishing rules. And at first I was cross. I was like, hey, you owe me money. And they were like, well, different rules. C'est la vie. And now, though, I'm delighted. I keep getting messages on Instagram from young Iranian kids who've read my books. And I think it's delightful. I love it. So, if people are reading my books, I'm pretty happy, really. I don't think things like books and a lot of intellectual digital property, I don't think is a zero-sum game. So if I give stuff away, that's going to then later on mean I won't get money. I think the more you can give away, the more you can get your message out into the world, the more that will then start to amplify and snowball and come back to you in the form of eventually some cash. So if anyone wants to pirate my books and get them to 1 million people, please do. Has anyone ever nicked an adventure idea of yours, done it and claimed it as their own? Great question. I did a little video on YouTube recently called The 7 Summits of My Neighbourhood, which is when I nicked an idea of Brendan Leonard because he had come up with an idea which definitely should have been the sort of thing I came up with, micro-adventure sort of thing. So it was a great idea of his. He didn't steal it off me, but I did steal it off him. I have a friend, he's an adventurer, and he's always talking about, I'm planning this sort of adventure. And then he says things like, but don't tell our rivals because they might steal the idea and do it. And I'm like, I don't think that at all. I think there's thousands of good adventure ideas, and even if, no, I don't worry about that at all, is my short answer. How do you deal with not being able to adventure if you're injured? Oh gosh, whenever I'm not injured, I just try and remember to be grateful for that feeling. I find if I can't exercise, I find it so unbelievably frustrating. But at the same time, so easy to spiral downwards into lazy apathy where I just end up slobbing around on the sofa, watching telly and drinking beer and hating myself and hating life. So it's a very quick downward spiral. So I don't really have a good answer on how to deal with it, except I guess just to try to do what you can. So when I broke my foot and I was still trying to train, I'd go to these water aerobic lessons with a load of old grannies and do some water aerobic stuff. Just trying to do something was better than doing nothing. Is adventure a youngster's game? If you're going to go ride around the world today, how do you think it would be different from doing it in your 20s? Great question. I think every age is fantastic for doing adventures. So I went when I was in my 20s. I was young and reckless and bold and looking for daft, stupid things to do, which is brilliant. So it led to a fantastic adventure. Now that I'm older, I would be less risky and reckless, but I've got more cash now. I also know more about the world. I always remember when I arrived in my first ever Arabic speaking country, Lebanon, my first night there, I stayed with this guy and all the signposts were in Arabic and the menus were in Arabic, and I was like, this is a crazy language. It doesn't look normal at all. I remember asking the guy, I said, hey, do you think Arabic's going to die out? Because it kind of makes no sense compared to English. And he was like, no, because 1 billion people speak it and have done for thousands of years. And I've often cringed at that, which is what a naive, daft question it was. Anyway, my point being, so if I travel around the world now, I probably wouldn't be hanging out with the funky young 20-year-olds, but maybe I'd be hanging out with some interesting, wise 40-year-olds, and it would be a different experience. I wouldn't cycle as fast as I did then, but that would be different. So no, definitely not. Anna Musto, she cycled around the world having retired as a headmistress. Audrey Sutherland, she did some of her really cool adventures later on in her life. So no, just the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I think the same applies for having adventures. What does retirement look like for you as an adventurer? I've sort of answered that, but I think when you're a self-employed guy, you don't really retire, do you? You just sort of fade away. There's certainly not going to be a golden watch on my 20th anniversary. Final question, I think, for today. I would like to know if you could tell me what your different income sources and what percentage they represent. Very good question. So for many years, let's say for the first 10 years of me making a living from adventure, I'd say 85% of my income was from speaking. In the early days, that was almost all at schools, and then gradually that moved towards corporate speaking things. And the rest, the remaining, say 10-15% was made up from book sales. Then there are a bunch of years when I started to earn money from filming, like making films for brands, and I got some money for a podcast, and I started to get some brand partnerships. So then I would say it was about 60% speaking, 30% brands and films and ambassador stuff, and about 10% writing. And then what I've been trying to do, I really want to be a writer. I'd love to earn all my money from writing. And to answer the previous question, I would love my retirement as an adventurer to be at a point when I've written enough books that earn enough trickle income so that I can live and retire from that. So these days I've dared myself to really cut down on other stuff. So I've sold all my film gear, I've cancelled most of my ambassador contracts, I've turned down nearly all of my talks, and I'm trying to dare myself to write more. And so now my earning percentage is now about 60% speaking and 40% writing, which sounds great, but you asked me for percentages, not value. So my actual income has dropped massively now that I've cut back on the filming and the brand type stuff, but I earn enough, and enough is enough. And then what I hope is that I can earn, if I can write 20 books that can earn £2,000 a year, 40 grand a year, I could retire quite happily for that. So that's my wish list dream. Thanks for your questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me, pop them in the form listed below, and I'll try and get to them soon. Thank you. Hi everyone.